Okay, so here you see the topic for today's random rant. I'm going to be talking about the steambox and what is Valve trying to accomplish with it. Um, so the way I see it, there's really only two goals that Valve can have with the steambox. First off, and you know what, I'll do the least likely one first. The first off is that they will not sell the console at once. I'll explain why that's important later. But they won't sell it at a loss, and they're trying to target the PC demographic. Um, why would they want to do this? Well, first off, they want to move away from Windows because they are essentially the competitor where they want to be. Windows is not, or Microsoft has not been very kind to PC gamers, and honestly, it'd be a good move for PC gamers to move away from Windows and DirectX. So they'll sell. Now they won't sell the machines at a loss. Like there's not really too much to this. But the second option, which is more likely, I think, is that they're trying to compete with the console market. And why is this more likely? Well, you have the stuff like the controller, stuff like Steam Big Picture, all indications that they really do want to compete very much so with the console market. But to really be competitive with the console market, you have to be competitive price point wise. The only way they can really do this is if they heavily subsidize it. Otherwise, you're just gonna get outperformed at a lower price by the consoles, since consoles are sold at a loss. So think about this. Can Valve do the same thing? Why can consoles like PlayStation, why can Sony and Xbox sell their console at a loss? And the main reason for this is that they get a big cut from every game that is sold for their platform. Now, if we plug this to Steam and the Steambox, can Valve do the same? And the answer is yes. Even though the Steambox is essentially just a PC, because Valve has such a monopoly on the PC gaming market through Steam, they could very much subsidize this Steambox very heavily. Just so they get, just because they get a cut from every game sold on Steam. So, yes, they could do. The point is, if they do subsidize it, they don't want PC gamers to buy it. Why? Because that would just cost them money. Think about this. They're selling the console at loss, so every console they sold, they lose money, essentially. It takes more to make one than they get from selling one. But if it's a PC gamer, he was probably already buying most games from Steam, so they're not gonna get a bigger cut from that. So if they do subsidize it, which I think is probably likely, otherwise they can't compete with consoles at all. If they do subsidize it, they're not going to be targeting the PC demographic. They're definitely going to be trying to compete with the console market. So, how, if you look at the Steambox like a console, how likely is it to beat the other consoles? How much of a chance does it really stand in the upcoming console? I think it has a pretty good chance, honestly. First off, a very important factor is going to be advertising. And I don't really want to talk about this because, yeah, it's not really very interesting. Steam needs to advertise this, Valve needs to advertise as well, or they won't get a lot of sales out of it. So, let's look at the Steambox like a console. What does it have when comparing consoles? How do you do this? The price points. First off, you take the price point. And the interesting part about Steambox is not just one thing. So the price points are going to be varying, as well as the performance. So, in that sense, pretty much anything you want out of the Steambox is pretty much possible. I think this is probably an advantage for them. If you want a low power console for a lower price, you can get the Steambox. If you want high power for a higher price, you can get the Steambox still. Advantage Steambox. What else does it have? Yeah, the controller looks interesting. It's hard to say whether or not that will be stronger or not. Another advantage the steambox has is its versatility. I mean, it's a PC. You could pretty much do anything. You could just take off the Steam OS, and it's gonna have stuff like full mod support. You can very much. I wouldn't even. It's not even hacking. You can very easily adapt it for other stuff. I mean, you can just put Windows on there if you want. So it has that in its favor. I mean, you can just plug the keyboard and mouse into it. Big advantage as far as I'm concerned. Not that the console market will really care that much. So really, none of that is really that big a deal. If you're comparing consoles, the biggest part is comparing exclusives. And this is kind of a big deal, and this is why the Steambox is actually a really interesting move from Steam, really, because a lot of the console exclusives, like Titanfall and Project Spark, sorry, are not actually full exclusives. They're not Xbox exclusives, they're just console exclusives, meaning they will be available on PC, which means they will also be available on the Steambox. And suddenly those exclusives are a lot less powerful because they're not really exclusives. Big deal right there. Secondly, I don't think they're really gonna get very big third-party exclusives that weren't already gonna be PC exclusives. So the big deal there is gonna be first-party exclusives. So games they make. So what really big exclusives does Valve have essentially that they can put on this machine to sell it? And of course, the big one here is going to be Half-Life 3. But how strong is that really in the console market? I mean, shooters are pretty strong in the console market, so it'll do pretty well. But a bigger deal is probably going to be Left 4 Dead 3. So, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is. They could very much time Left 4 Dead 3 with the Steam box release. And I think that'd be fairly successful. The thing is, right, as another advantage for Steambox that I hadn't mentioned yet, is that it's completely backwards compatible. It's a PC. You could play anything. You could just run an emulator and you could just play just anything. Really. I mean, yeah, except just like modern stuff. But like, pretty much, you can go back as far as you want, pretty much, with Steam. I mean, with the PC. So that's another big advantage. Yeah, I mean, a lot of console gamers probably won't have a lot of PC games, so that won't really be too much a factor, which is kind of a good thing, because so backward compatibility is not really that big a deal for console gamers, but then again, the new ones are not backwards compatible, so not really a big difference, I guess. Let's get back to the exclusives. Yeah, the third one is Portal 3, by the way. That's not a big exclusive. If you count that, it's never gonna come to console anyway. This is just doesn't work. You need keyboard and mouse for that. So, looking at that, those three consoles, those three games, those three exclusives, are they strong enough? Because honestly, I think they're probably the strongest of the exclusive lineup out of really all of the consoles. Maybe that's just because I'm a PC gamer, but it is pretty strong. It's three full titles that are really just going to be. I mean, yes, Windows, you can still play on Windows and stuff like that. But yeah, okay. So here's kind of the weird thing about this. They're gonna be releasing at a different window. Pretty much. They're not going to be releasing at the same time the other consoles. It's not even announced yet when they're releasing. They're just now getting into beta. It's going to be a while, honestly. So, how are they, like... This is where it gets kind of tricky. Because how many people are really going to be getting into the new consoles very early on? I'm guessing Steambox will probably come out a year from now, maybe a little bit less. Somewhere next year, maybe halfway through. Maybe they'll wait for the holiday season. We'll see. They're gonna be making a lot of iterations, constantly, pretty much. So it's not really a huge deal. Just somewhere next year, after the first consoles. I guess they think there's a couple of explanations for this. One, they don't think they can directly compete with these consoles, with the new consoles. So they kind of want to want to play it in an iterative way. they're just kind of gonna chip away at the console base, essentially, slowly but surely. I don't know if that really makes that much sense. The second one is they didn't decide to do this late and they can't get it out in time. I don't know. It's hard to say whether or not that's a likely alternative. The question is, how big of a deal is this really? Because there's a few things to consider when you're talking about adoption of new consoles. The first off is going to be there's no backwards compatibility. So that's definitely going to hurt adoption rates early on. Of course, Steam does have backwards compatibility, steambox. Again, not really that big of a deal for console gamers. Second thing you want to consider is this is one of the longest console generations ever, pretty much, which means that more people are going to be pretty much itching to get into the next generation just because hardware is so outdated. They want to get the newer stuff, they want to get the better graphics, they want just the upgrade. It's been so long. So that's kind of working against that. So, but generally, looking at consoles and early adoption, generally most people will buy consoles quite a bit after first release. So in that sense, Steam isn't in too big of a disadvantage there. Now, the last advantage that the Steambox will have over the consoles is that it's very much iterative. They will release new Steam boxes pretty much probably every year. I'm gonna guess, maybe more often than that, but probably every year there'll be a new one if it doesn't fail completely. And somewhere like halfway through the lifespan of the consoles, of like the PlayStation, maybe not halfway, maybe later, but like the maximum optimization is sort of gonna be. It's always gonna get a little bit better, but not really massive notable differences. And at that point, essentially, the hardware is gonna become outdated, or it's already outdated a while, right? But people aren't gonna notice just because the graphics keep getting better because of the optimization. But at that point, people are gonna be, since the Steambox is still up to date with hardware, that's where they're probably gonna be getting more console gamers, and that's done from the new generation. Of course, that's gonna be quite a few years down the line. We'll see how that all works out in a few years, I guess, not more than that. It's going to be at least 4 to 5 years before something like that happens. But then they'll be taking... then they'll be taking more players from the console market, essentially. And that's them from the new generation. Once, that really starts becoming obviously outdated. So that's probably I think that's the last advantage the Steambox has over the consoles. Considering the other option that they are targeting the PC market. No, look, that's not what I'm saying. It's, even if they subsidize it, it's still going to be a dual purpose. Like, they're still going to be taking away from the PC market. They're still going to be essentially, they're still going to be getting PC gamers, and that's still also a good thing because they do want to move away from Windows. Although they will be selling those at a loss, which is not great. So, I don't know, we'll see. I guess the big deal here is, will they sell the console at a loss? That's very much, or will they, they don't even necessarily have to sell it at a loss, just subsidize it. Are they going to subsidize the Steambox? That's really the big tell here. And that's probably the most important thing. And I think that's it for today's random rant. Leave your thoughts on the subject in the comments below the video. And I'll see you guys next time.